Your love is like radiant diamonds bursting inside us, we cannot contain. Your love will surely come find us like blazing wildfires, singing your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the skies, these hallelujahs be multiplied.
Well, some of the qualities that I had hoped my future spouse would have would be for him to be very generous. It was important to me that I marry somebody that had a very giving heart and that would be willing to sacrifice of himself. I had also wanted somebody that was very romantic, but also very firm when he needed to be, and those are some of the qualities that I had always wanted.
Well, it would have to be, I'm big on just being me, and the biggest thing was to be accepting of who I am. This is what you get. This is how God made me, with all my flaws, you know, and that was the big one. And like every man, you gotta eat. So, we'll work on that one, but I think the biggest one was just being able to accept me for who I am with all of my mistakes and all of my quirks and stuff, and that was one thing that she exceeded far in, and I'm thankful for God for that.
When Danny and I first met, we were at church, and he had just started coming to our church, and I had been going there for a long time. And his parents had introduced us, and we met there. And my first impression of him was he was extremely quiet. I was very outgoing and very friendly. I knew a lot of people at the church, and it was his first time there. And basically, he didn't say anything to me. He shook my hand, and that was it. I had no idea that he was interested in me.
So it was at our church, actually, and I wasn't expecting anything. Actually, at that time, I wasn't a big church person anyway. And I went with my father one day reluctantly, and he introduced me to this girl named Christina. And when I saw her, that's the first moment that I met her. And that's when it was just like, whoa.
Until that night, he ended up calling my house, and it was a friendship since then. So.
We did see each other more than friends shortly after we were talking, probably maybe 2 months after we were just talking all night long.
So even though I thought that this could potentially lead somewhere, I was hesitant to take that step forward because I knew I'd be gone for 3 years. So there was always that anticipation that maybe somewhere along the line, maybe later on in the future, something would work out between us.
Well, the circumstances surrounding our first date it was more of a surprise for her. And she didn't really know what was going on. And she's big on the outdoors, and she loves to walk in the parks. And guess what? I planned a surprise trip around Treble Mill Park for a little walk around the park. And she was very surprised when she saw that. She was like, oh my gosh, what is this?
Well, we've had a lot of first dates because Danny and I had a lot of off and ons, and we've been friends for over 8 years. But I think our first date would be after a couple months of meeting Danny. He came down to Florida to visit me at school, and I was still kind of like, does this guy like me, or is he just interested in being friends? But we spent the whole weekend at the beach and visiting my grandparents' house, and to me that would be like our first date, even though we were just friends and we had just met each other. But I think our official date, our official first date as a couple would be when Danny took me to Tribble Mill Park over here in the near the venue for our first date.
The way I felt about Christina after our first date was just a whole new level of wow. I mean, she rocked my world. She really did. I mean, just the way I could connect with her on a whole nother level and made it easy. And it was just a whole new level of just, whoa, what just happened?
Well, we had known each other for 3 to 4 years by then. And when we had our first date at the park, I definitely knew that this was the person I wanted to be with. Now, our first date at the beach, at that time, I think that's probably when I actually fell in love with Danny, because I had just known him for a couple months, but yet I could tell he was so passionate about me, but willing to wait ever long I needed him to. So that meant a lot to me. Our relationship kind of progressed very slowly, in my opinion. We were very cautious when we first started dating, because we had been friends for so long, that we really wanted to make sure that if we did go ahead and start to date, that it definitely needed to last, or we probably wouldn't be as close as friends as we had been before. So we were very cautious, but I think it was more of a slow progression of us getting to know each other again and falling in love with each other again. And I think that's exactly how the Lord wanted it to be, because we learned so much about each other by taking it so slow.
Well, we were able to get to a level where we can talk about everything and anything. And it had its ups and downs, just like everything. As she was seeing my mistakes and I was seeing hers, and it was the pluses and stuff. It was a godly relationship that it was a little bit of a rocky road at first, but I mean, and in the end, it was so rewarding. I mean, 5 years later, that speaks in and of itself, where it's just like, man, 5 years, we're able to talk about everything and go through just about any trouble that we can go through. So
Danny and I, we love doing anything outdoors. We backpack together, we hike, we love to swim, but backpacking and hiking are probably our two favorite things. We also bowl together, typical things like just spending time watching TV, playing games, but anything outdoors, we just love being outside.
We're big on the outdoors. I mean, we love the outdoors. We don't like to be inside the four walls. So we're big on hiking and going on walks, riding bikes. I'm trying to get her to skydive, but that's gonna require a lot of selflessness on her part. But again, we're big on the outdoors. We love that shit. We love theme parks, and we're fun, outgoing, crazy, spontaneous. Whatever we come up with, we'll just go ahead and do it. The first time I met her parents was actually the very first time I met her at church, and so it was basically like, my dad was like, I want to introduce you to Christina. And I said, well, okay, I'm not really interested in anybody. You brought me out to church. And then I was like, wow. And then she was like, I want to introduce you to my parents. And I said, whoa. I was like, oh man, what do I do? Prepare, plan B, best behavior. So it was, at first, it was a little bit intimidating. It's your future wife's parents, and it was interesting at first. Her dad was very, how you doing? Firm handshake, and I was like, oh my gosh, here it comes, target on my back. But her mom was great. I mean, her mom, she had her heart, and it was awesome. But then her dad, again, great man. He opened up his heart, and he went from that, just like any dad, what are you doing here, to, I got a son now.
I met his parents at church. He is Puerto Rican and I am as well. And there's this Spanish thing that once you meet a Puerto Rican, if you are Puerto Rican, it's like meeting family members. So I actually used to call his parents my aunt and uncle. And from the day that I met his dad, he had always told me, you have to meet my son Danny, you have to meet my son Danny. So he's actually the one that introduced us to each other.
God of mercy, sweet love of mine, and I have surrendered to your desire. May this offering that's close to God, this hallelujah be multiplied. This hallelujah be multiplied.
With the engagement, I had, one thing about me is that I'm an excellent prankster, and I'm very slick when it comes to, I can keep a straight face. So I planned this whole ordeal with my pastor, which, God bless his soul, he actually played along with it. And we were going to go to this fancy restaurant, called the Cabernet. The executive chef is one of my best friends at church, and so he came on board with this plan and everything. And we were going to meet for a wedding counseling type meeting, premarital. But in fact, it wasn't. It was just going to be us two. So here we are, at the restaurant. She's nervous. She's like, I don't know how I'm going to tell, our pastor about us and stuff. And so I'm sitting there in the back of my head like, oh, does she have something else coming? And, it worked out great. Like, the executive chef came out. He came out and introduced and said hi. He brought me back to the kitchen. I gave him the ring, and I told him, I said, bring this out with before we start our meal. I want to surprise her. I want to rock her, because the longer we stay here waiting on our pastor to come, the more she's gonna catch on to, like, you know what, ain't nobody coming. And so he brought it out. I mean, beautiful display. I mean, you're talking about high class. He did an awesome job, and he brought it out there with our first appetizer, and it was on a plate, rose petals, and then she knew, oh man, the pastor's not coming. That's what I told her. Like, so I have a confession to make. Nobody's coming, Christina. And I got down on one knee, and she already just started crying.
Danny had planned to propose to me on a certain day, and I actually can't remember the day, but it was at the end of January. We had been talking about getting engaged for a couple months, and we had even looked at rings, and we had talked about it, and we hadn't done any of the specific things like looked at a venue or anything like that. But he had said that we were going to go to dinner with our pastor and his wife, that our pastor had wanted to take us out for dinner to a restaurant in Alpharetta called the Cabernet. And we had wanted to go there for a while, and so I said, okay, well, that's cool. Well, I thought, well, maybe something was going on, because I knew it was getting close to that time that we were talking about getting engaged. And up until the day that we actually went to the restaurant, I was thinking, okay, something's gonna happen. Like, I'm pretty sure he's gonna propose to me. So it was actually a beautiful thing, because I actually got to think back and say, this might be my last day as a single woman. And so that night, we had planned to go to dinner. We drove down there to Alpharetta, and we walked in, and they said, are you the Dustin Pennington party, which is our pastor's name? And so that's when I thought, okay, it's not gonna be today. I said, they're definitely gonna be here. He wouldn't propose to me in front of them. So we sat down, and he actually went into the kitchen and was talking to the chef, who's a friend of ours from our church. And moments later, they came out with a platter with my ring on it, and it said, "Will you marry me?" And Danny got on his knee and proposed, and it was a beautiful time. It was like I knew it, but I was surprised in the same way. So it was the best of both worlds.
I would say the goals that I have for my marriage would be primarily having it continue to be God-centered. That's one thing that's been happening with our marriage, is that everything has been God ordained. And if you were to ask me how it was able to happen that way, I couldn't even explain it to you. That's just something that I could testify to in the way God knitted that together. So that's the one big thing that I would love to have moving forward. And I know we could have that. And another thing big is, you know, that ripple effect spiritually, is to be able to bring that to our children and let it renew our generation, our own family generation, to where it could be a blessing, you know. And that's another big goal that I have. And then on a minor level, we're living together now, and now it's gonna be no holds barred, socks gonna be thrown everywhere, and you know, food's gonna be, I don't know, it might be burned, I don't know, but that's gonna be another goal, is learning to work together and learning from each other, those new habits. I'm gonna have to lose habits, I'm gonna have to gain habits, and primarily for me, because you know, I'm sure the dude's got more issues than the girl does. But that's what I think, those three goals.
I think one thing that I really, well, the obvious thing is that I definitely want our marriage to glorify the Lord. Over everything that we've been through, He has been so faithful, and to me, that's one thing that I feel like we owe to Him, because He has been so faithful in bringing us together, and after everything that we've been through, and over the 8 years that we've known each other, to me, that's the greatest thing that I can give back to the Lord. But I think in relationship to Danny, is I really want to be able to serve him wholeheartedly, not just you know, cooking and cleaning for him, but to really be like his best friend and his emotional support through any hardship he may go through. I want him to be able to rely on me. So I think for one of my aspirations, that would definitely be on the top of the list.
Christina, this is by far the happiest day of my life. And if someone were to ask me if I can go back and redo it all, would I? I'd say no without hesitation. This whole ride has been so awesome and exciting, and God has blessed us in such a supernatural way, and I'm looking forward to growing old with you, sharing laughs, and becoming better people together under Him. And I want to be that man that you've been praying to God about and exceed that. And I'll spend my whole entire life doing that. And that's a promise that I make to you. And even since we met, it hit me like a ton of bricks one night. And I feel the Lord just speaking to me, and in a dream, that, you know, what are you willing to do to be with her and to give her what she's asking of? And I said, anything. I'll do whatever it takes. So that's what I wanted to say. I love you so much. This is the greatest day of my life, and I don't want to have any other day. I don't want to replicate this. I want this to be memorable for us. And when we grow old and when we're all wrinkly and yeah, I'm in all of my glory, we can look back at this and just be happy. I love you.
Danny, I just want to say that I am so excited to marry you. We have been through a lot over the past 5 years dating, but it's been 7 to 8 years that we've been friends, and I have I've never known anybody to be as dedicated to me as you are. I've gone back and I've read over the letters that you wrote me and the things that we talked about, and I have never felt the love of the Lord so strong than when it's coming from you loving me. So I am so excited to marry you. I'm so excited to share my life with you, and I thank you for all the qualities that you possess, and I know that God put them in you because He knew that I would need them. And I'm so thankful for that, and I hope that I can serve you and be that person that you need for the rest of your life. And I love you, and I can't wait for our big day. Yay!
Thanks so much, family. We love you. Thanks for your support.
We want to thank you for supporting us. We really do. We love all of you, and through your support and your love, that's another thing that paved the way for us. Your support and your love, and we want to say thank you. God bless you guys, and we love you all, and we thank you for taking this journey with us.
And thank you, Papito, for introducing me to Danny.
I love you.
Love you too.
I love you more.
And I love you more.